Hello, everyone, and thank you, Vrinda, for your rather touching, if I may say, introduction. Um, now, uh, this is a very nice show, I must say. You want to, okay, yeah, thank you. It's a very nice show, and I'm really pleased to be here. Um, Vrinda had to kind of tell me at the last minute that I must come, and I'm glad you did that. So the thing is that since I didn't think that it was necessary to or important to show my work, but I thought that the whole theme of this event, which is about sketches, the voice of sketches, is that what it is? Um, it was quite significant, and it made me remember how I related to the business of drawing. Uh, I've been teaching in this country now for about 40 years or more, and before that I was a student in Europe, and making the change to India, I was very struck by the fact that, as I was telling somebody earlier on, that in Europe, architects are taught how to make things along with making drawings. In India, we teach students how to make drawings, and nothing much more than that. And so drawing is really very important here, and most architects' offices flourish on that. I would like to tell you, just in brief, because there's not much time, about my relationship with drawing. You see, in the first year, I did start my architectural training at IIT Kharagpur in 1959. And at that time, we were told to first learn how to use a pencil. And we spent weeks making pencil lines on cartridge paper to perfect the use of the pencil. And after we'd done that for several weeks, we were then told to use ink. And ink also in a stylus, not what we use today, Of course, today, people don't draw very much, do they? Anyway, with ink, stylus, and by the end of the first year, we were actually able to draw with pencil and ink, and we were even allowed to use a rapidograph. This was a great concession. By the second year, I realized that having sort of learned how to draw with pencil, and I found that what the medium I used to make the drawing certainly began to influence the way I thought or I could express myself, and how much I could express was conditioning my thinking. So then I decided to work in models much more. So I started making models. And of course, drawing is a necessary thing with it. By third year, I was working mainly with photographs, or by fourth year, I was doing films. And my thesis was presented to the Architectural Association as a film. The RIBA external examiners were very upset. They said, where's the architecture? This is the RIBA also, but this was way back in 1966. Or 5 or sometime like that. So they were looking for buildings, and I was presenting actually a thesis on housing, mass housing. There was a competition organized in Europe at that time for mass housing using steel, sponsored by the European, whatever it was, Commission for Steel. So I designed in the thesis was actually a system for putting ground and circulation and geometry into a composition which would grow and suit many different sites. So really it was a series of abstractions. However, working with film made me realize that I could really think much more freely in order to express myself, and this encouraged much more freedom. So I sort of got away from drawing. In the film, the drawing was largely done by pre-made stickers, because you could buy all kinds of stickers and tapes and things like that. Ready-made instruments, if you like, for putting down thoughts, transfers and things. Yeah, exactly. So worked entirely with that, and then you see, one was back into the world. One came into the world producing buildings in real life. That was also in India. So then I discovered that I had to make drawings, actually on tracing paper with pencil, and pencil was always better than ink. Ink you had to scratch too much, in order to change, revise the thing. And then I discovered that when I went to site, nobody actually looked at the drawings. They looked at them and put them away, generally in a cupboard. And I had to, have a lot of difficulty with the supervisors to say, where are the drawings? Now, they didn't understand the point of the drawing, really. I understood the point when I worked with them, and I realized that when I looked at my drawing on the site, it made me remember the line of thinking which resulted in that drawing to be made and that design to be finalized. It was a source, it was a memory. The importance of the drawing became to me a memory, because we'd made a drawing and maybe 6 months later, sometimes a year later, you come on site with it. And you've really forgotten what was the exact line of thinking which came to this peculiar composition that you're finally now trying to erect. So then I realized that this is really very important. But I said, how are these people building? And they built what I drew. So I said, what's going on here? They're not looking at the drawing, but they're building what I've drawn. And then I realized that while I explained the drawing to them on site, they visualized what I had visualized to make the drawing. The drawing is only an expression of what you visualize. The technique of visualization, of course, is unfortunately not taught to architects. I learned it when I had to engage with the Mahayana Buddhists under the Dalai Lama. In fact, it was His Holiness himself who first gave the lesson in what he called tantric meditation, where you actually use an extraordinarily powerful form of visualization in order to train the mind. The whole thing is to train the mind. And the best form that is known to anyone, I believe, is a process of visualization. It's not a very simple form of visualization, but it's an extremely intense form of visualization. And if you can do that, you're guaranteed that you'll, achieve Buddhahood in one lifetime. Which is, it's a wonderful idea that you can achieve Buddhahood. Most people wait, as the Dalai Lama says, that all of us have been born so many times. Everybody here must have been my mother in some earlier life. You're all my brothers and sisters, because, we all have a common mother somewhere in some life. So, but if you can actually achieve Buddhahood in one lifetime, then you have obviously a very powerful technique. So now this whole idea of visualization at a very simple level on the building side, we come across it all the time. The people who build these rather important, significant things that we draw up and think about are actually taking the transfer of a visualization which is in my mind. The better I can visualize it through reading my drawing, the better the understanding of the craftsman, and they very often improvise with that, and they suggest various things. So it becomes, the process of design gets extended to the site, and it's not frozen in the drawing. Whereas in industrial building, the thing is just frozen into the drawing or the calculations, really. Where drawing is no longer we draw anymore like sketching, but we draw by numbers. So it's actually a question of using numbers rather than using shapes and all the rest of that. Is this working, the mic? Yeah. So this particular experience was brought on of the importance of visualization and being able to transfer an idea which has been visualized across space, as it were, to another person. This is, in fact, a very important technique of, I discovered, of getting your own idea working further and deepening it. And it would take a long time to explain all that. I think I would not much time, 10 minutes or something. I've already taken 10 minutes, I think. So over the years, as I started going to site and having to work on several projects at the same time, I thought that, and drawing such a laborious process, you have to really focus, you have to really engage with this paper and spend a lot of time. Otherwise, the expression is really rather crude. Now, if I spend time making every drawing, the work will never get done. So I had to use Virinder, everybody else who worked with me as my drawing instruments. And this is where the process of visualization comes in use. That without drawing, I have to communicate to the people who will draw it for me, but they must draw the idea which is in my mind. So this whole idea that you can actually project from your mind the so-called drawing, which we normally expect in our portfolio, the ones that, and which is really the drawings are up, not drawings, you've got sketches, which is sort of the first stage. But the same thing can be done without the reduction. Every drawing is a reduction of the idea. Every drawing. I mean, our first reduction is the word. The mind is very free and it's very deep. The first reduction is the word, which is, of course, our first tool. And it is the beginning of civilization, the beginning of culture. Our second reduction is the drawing, or the picture we make. Children start with making pictures rather than doing words. So the picture is the second reduction. And then drawing that we do in order to make something, to communicate an idea, is actually a much later stage of reduction, and therefore a much more of a reduction. Now, how can we transmit the freedom of our imagination into this process of expression, which you can share with somebody else, but at the same time you can release the same energy which has come to making that idea in your mind with another mind. If you can do that, then you really become a technical person. You are transforming the environment. So the process of transformation is what the term architect is all about. It is the chief of the technos. The technos is the process of transformation. And what are we transforming? We're transforming the world around us. So this ability to transform the world, and I very much wanted to, I thought one of the reasons why I must come and speak is I want to tell the people who work in this field, especially students, is that you must stop drawing. You just go out and transform the world around you. You can do it. It's very easy. I've been telling the people who organize the NASA shows, the 5,000 students gather in one city every year. And what do they do? They look at each other's drawings and they compete for making the nicest drawing. And they're given awards by distinguished people like Madhav and all these people, They give them all awards that, the best, what is it, G-Sen trophy and that trophy and this trophy. And before coming to that forum, they've spent a whole term, in the college doing nothing else but making these silly drawings, And I've been telling them that every time you meet, you must take it upon yourselves. Your 3 days in one city, you can transform the public spaces of the city. Not all of them. Select 10 or 20 public spaces. Talk to the district magistrate or the district collector and get the permission. And just go and transform these spaces. In 3 days, 5,000 architecture students can change the city. And in the process, the public will realize the value of architecture. Many architects complain that the clients don't pay them fees properly, this, that, and the other. Because you don't do anything to benefit other people. If you benefit other people, they'll gladly pay you. In fact, they'll force you money on you. I've had that experience, believe me. Yeah. People insist, you must take something for what you've done. So anyway, but you have to offer tangible benefit to the people around you. So architects have an awesome responsibility, really. We can change the entire physical world. And that is our job. But how do we change it? We start with drawing, yes, that's the kindergarten. But I think that as we get into doing things on a urban scale, which is inevitable, because you never do a building, no building exists on its own. Every building is part of a neighborhood. And it is only neighborhoods which create the urban system. No town planner understands neighborhoods. They tell us numbers and things like that. But it's architects who understand neighborhoods. And in the 20th century, you know, the term was invented of the architect planner. And you must think as to why architect planner was invented. Although in the 20th century, we made sure that we destroyed most of the cities that existed, but in the process of doing that, further and further. But in any case, the idea that we do a building, it's part of a neighborhood, and the whole process of thinking about the neighborhood is a process of transformation of the physical environment, along with it, the people who live there. Because our job is to know about how people inhabit buildings. Not only how we make buildings, but how people inhabit buildings. If we work on that principle of making buildings more inhabitable, we will undoubtedly create benefit for those for whom we work. And I think it is our job to do that. We start with drawing, but we must transform the environment. And that comes from straight direct. It comes through astral projection. You project yourself, your ideas, onto people. And if you do it well, you will find that things around you become more and more beneficial. And with that thought, I think I'll leave you to further reflection.